Welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. My name is Neil Vandry and I am your officiator here. I'd like to welcome you to our service tonight. And if this is your first time with us, joining us, I'd like to invite you to join our email list so that you can get updates on all that is going on in super longevity so that you may live a longer and healthier life. You can join our email list simply by sending me a message through our website at www.perpetual.life. I want to also thank you, Rudy Hoffman and David Croft, for hosting the online Zoom party earlier. Tonight we have a presentation with Dr. Jordan Sparks from the Sparks Brain Preservation Organization. Please make note of any questions that you have throughout his presentation because there will be a questions and answer period after his presentation. We now have a Perpetual Life WhatsApp group that's led by Charlie Wood. Check your latest newsletter for a link on joining the WhatsApp group with the church. Upcoming events that you should know about. We will be meeting next month in person and online, both in person at the church at Perpetual Life in Pompano Beach and online. That's going to be Thursday, May 28th. The Vitalist Bay event is taking place from May 14th to the 17th, and that's at Lighthaven campus in Berkeley, California. They'll be having presentations on super longevity and bio-stasis there. The RadFest is in Scottsdale, Arizona, September 4th through the 6th. And the Rising Leaders in Bio-stasis will be right after the RadFest, September 6th through the 8th. And this is all at the Talking Stick Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. There are some scholarships available for the Rising Leaders in Bio-stasis. If you'd like information about that, please get a hold of me and let me know. The International Longevity Summit in Madrid, 2026, that's September 28th, 29th, 30th, and October the 1st. And there are 3 unicorn summits scheduled. In Europe, it's May 30th and 31st. In South America, August 30th and 31st. And in North America, October 17th and the 18th. I do want to thank you for your wonderful donations for Perpetual Life. We appreciate it greatly. Your donations help us to do more with what we are doing. If you'd like to make a donation online, just go to the Perpetual Life website, and there's a donation link at the top of the page. Dr. Maharaj and Dr. Kurt Whitmore with the Maharaj Stem Cell Institute are doing a special study with stem cell enriched young plasma treatments. I have joined the study myself, and I was just over at the Institute this past Tuesday and Wednesday getting an enriched young plasma infusion. If you'd like information about this program, let me know. I'll connect you. They are also looking for young plasma donors, people who are 18 to 35 years old, and there is a financial compensation for donating plasma. You can speak directly with Dr. Kurt Whitmore, or again, contact me and I'll connect you with him. Let's do our creed, the Perpetual Life Creed. We believe that all of life is sacred and that we have been given this one life to make unlimited. We believe in our Creator's divine plan for all of humanity to have infinite lifespans in perfect health and eternal joy, rendering death to be optional. By following our gospel, we achieve eternal life, creating a heaven here on earth. We follow Nikolai Fedorov, who taught that the transcendence of the Creator will be solved only when humanity, in our unified efforts, become an instrument of universal resuscitation, when the divine word becomes our divine action. And we follow Arthur C. Clarke, who said, the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. And so, we enter each day energized in spirit and empowered by the words of our prophets to live in joy, serving our Creator and all of mankind forever and ever. Now, what about bio-stasis? Are you curious about cryonics? You'll find resources at Perpetual Life, and if you have any interest in bio-stasis or cryonics of any type of bio-stasis, please let me know. I'll be happy to connect you with other people that can get you more information about that. Tonight, as I mentioned, we have a great presentation coming for you from Dr. Jordan Sparks. He is a former dentist and a software developer who founded the Sparks Brain Preservation. which was formerly the Oregon Cryonics in Salem, Oregon, specializing in chemical brain preservation and occasionally cryopreservation. He is a prominent figure in the field, focused on low-cost, long-term neuropreservation services. The Sparks Brain Preservation is a nonprofit mutual benefit organization with a mission of providing the highest quality brain preservation services possible for their members. The organization was incorporated in 2005 as Oregon Cryonics by the founder, Dr. Jordan Sparks, and in the early days they focused primarily on education and providing local assistance to people who were signed up with cryonic organizations. In 2014, they launched as an independent preservation service organization and began accepting patients from the general public. They preserved their first human patient in 2015, with their third patient being preserved in December of that year. In addition to traditional cryonics, they offer aldehyde preservation, also known as chemical fixation, as one of the available preservation options. They were the first in the world to offer this service to the public. They have changed their name, so it is now called the Sparks Brain Preservation. I first had the pleasure of meeting Jordan Sparks at the Venturist Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, over a decade ago, and I'm sure that you will enjoy his presentation on the Sparks Brain Preservation Organization. About 8 years ago, when at the Teens to 20s conference in Oregon, I had the opportunity to tour his facility, and it is quite impressive. Let's all welcome Dr. Jordan Sparks with his presentation on the Sparks Brain Preservation Organization. Jordan.
Hi, thank you for that introduction. You covered most of my first slides, so I have less words to say now. Let me, yeah. Let's see. Let me try to share my screen here. All right, so there you go. All right, and can you see it?
Yes, that's good. We see it.
All right. So, as Neil said,
It looks like it's a
yes.
little bit large on the screen. How does it look at your end, Evan? Does it look sized properly? Looks good to David. Okay, we're good to go.
I'm on a 4K monitor. I hope that's not the problem.
Well, let's on my end, it looks like it's running off.
All right.
Looks good. Okay, looks good for everybody.
Um, yeah, so my day job is I've been focusing on software engineering for about 20 years. Um, and the reason I do that is because that makes good money. And so I've got 450 employees. We do about 70 million in gross revenue, and a small portion of that I'm able to put into brain preservation. Um, let's see here. This is our main facility in Salem, Oregon. It was built 8 years ago, and it's been constantly expanded and remodeled ever since. We had an older location about 15 minutes away prior to this one. This building is right on Interstate 5 and highly visible to all the freeway traffic. It's about 20,000 square feet with a huge concrete vault and space for many scientists to work. So that makes it bigger than Alcor or CI. We have plenty of room for expansion also. We could grow to about 5 times our current size if we need to, but we're actually at a pretty good stopping point, and I don't anticipate needing to expand this building for quite a while. Our goal is preservation with the intent to revive, just like traditional cryonics. We use a slightly different technology. Instead of cryopreservation, we use chemical fixation. This is a much more scientific approach that has the full backing of mainstream neuroscientists. A mainstream scientist would never use cryopreservation to preserve brain structure because it just doesn't work very well. The evidence is overwhelming that our preservation technique is superior, and our goal is to replace traditional cryonics and render that approach completely obsolete. We have a staff of 10 who work on multiple human cadavers and multiple pets every week. We've done around 300 practice cases on donated human cadavers. We currently have 21 humans and 11 pets in storage. We are currently building 7 additional remote facilities around the United States. I'm going to go slow here because it's a little hard to see what's going on, but um, let me see if I can get my pointer turned on. All right. So our main facility is here in Salem, Oregon. We're building one in Oakland, actually, right here. Los Angeles, uh, Dallas, Fort Worth. We have one in Chicago and New York. We have not yet purchased buildings in Atlanta or Miami. So that's a total of 8 locations if you include our main location here. The blue lines indicate driving times. I just showed them as straight lines. Obviously, they're on roads, but the blue numbers represent how far away each of these cities is with good driving conditions. So roughly, it's optimized to try to reach as many people in the United States as possible. This puts us within 6 hours of driving of 84% of the population. There's some population centers that are a little harder to reach that we can't quite serve by driving. Each location will have an ambulance and be staffed with full-time employees. And until construction is complete, we currently fly people out for each case. We just had one last weekend. Rapid response is the term we use for various strategies for getting to people more quickly. And rapid response is the key to making this all work, and it will absolutely result in better outcomes. So the idea of the rapid response is that we have multiple locations so that we can get to people quicker at a lower threshold, and that allows us to rotate staff through during a deployment. Medical aid in dying is a big part of what we do. It allows the best possible preservation because it eliminates all travel. And that would be if the person comes to one of our facilities. Now, that's only going to be possible in Oregon, Oakland, Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. We can't do that in Dallas, Atlanta, or Miami because the state laws won't allow it. But 5 out of 8 isn't bad. Ambulances. So the ambulance at each location lets us get there quickly, obviously, but it also lets us perform certain procedures in the field. So our ambulances are equipped, they're specially built. They're taller than a normal ambulance so that we can stand up inside of them. And we've built a number of them over the years. This is just the latest iteration, and we already have plans for how we're going to change the next small batch that we build. And we've been asked by people if we can leave ambulances in Seattle, for example, which is fairly close to us and would make sense to try to do something there. But it doesn't really make sense because you need people, not just an ambulance. And so it makes more sense for us to just drive from Salem, for example. If somebody's in Seattle, that's a 4-hour drive, and that's just how we're going to have to do it. But we like to send somebody as soon as we can. So we'll send somebody fairly early, and they can be on site as an advocate, even if there's not as high of a chance of death. Post-mortem, we get a fair number of cases that are actually where we're notified after the patient is already deceased. But even in these cases, uh, we treat them as urgent by sending out team members immediately. Funding. So rapid response is included in our standard fee for preservation. We are actually undercharging and we're subsidizing the cost of all of this. I can afford to do this, and I'm hoping that over the next few decades that um, economies of scale and other people coming on board will allow this to continue even after I'm gone. We provide financial aid, and we also tend to respond first without worrying too much about later payment. Standby is not a term that we don't really use. Rapid response is more than standby, and it's not binary. There's different amounts of deployment that we do, and the the initial response is simpler and lower cost. We're eager to deploy rather than hesitant. Our preservation we don't use medications, ice bath, or chest compressions. And so the things we do during a deployment aren't going to be what you might be familiar with if you know about what happens during a cryonics standby. It's different than that. We're more interested in getting the the chemicals into the arteries. All the other stuff is very secondary. Okay, the procedure can be done in a vehicle or in one of our operating rooms. The most important step, like I said, is to quickly get the formalin into the brain. This can sometimes be done within minutes. And the moment the formalin reaches the tissue, the metabolism slows or stops, and that buys us more time. So that would be a similar purpose to the initial cooling in traditional cryonics. So we can get the formalin into the brain in minutes, which is quite a bit faster than the cooling can take effect in the brain. The cooling has a curve that is frustratingly long. Uh, I don't know how much I should talk about what's happening in here. Here's some pumps and reservoirs over here. Um, our big tube here, I think we're working on one that looks a little nicer. This is because we use the chemicals, there's a fume issue that we have to deal with, and so we have to make sure to have good suction to um, not choke people out. And this is a CT scanner back here. We originally got it when we were just doing cryonics. It's very useful for cryonics. It's not so useful for chemical preservation. Um, With cryonics, it's very important that you get the cryoprotectant everywhere into the brain before you do sub-zero cooling, and so I felt it was absolutely critical to buy that piece of equipment. We don't do sub-zero cooling anymore unless we've soaked the brain for months in cryoprotectant, so there's zero chance of ice, and so this machine now is not really a clinical tool anymore. It's more just a research tool, and actually it breaks down quite a bit. It's been in the shop for months, but it's fun when it works. It does show us the distribution of chemicals in the brain. Perfusion is the term we use for pumping fluids through the arteries. We use the carotid arteries and the vertebral arteries. We can inject with large syringes, or we can use a pump. It doesn't take a lot of volume to do what we need to do at first. Any little bit that gets in there really slows everything down, and so it's just really important to get that initial formalin into the brain. After perfusion, which is usually not very successful in cryonics and in what we do, perfusion is difficult and it's almost never very good. when a human dies, the brain has already been gradually dying for hours, and the circulation is just simply not good. We remove the brain immediately after perfusion so that we can do even better. We place it in formalin for about 2 weeks, and that ensures that it's very well preserved all throughout. This is followed by months of immersion in cryoprotective agent that completely eliminates ice crystals during further cooling later. So we do cool it later, just not as cold as traditional cryonics. And so we do need to get the cryoprotectant in there, but we have lots of time to work. Finally, the brain is placed in permanent refrigeration. So what you're looking at here is that massive vault that I was talking about. There's a huge refrigerator that you can kind of see in the background through the vault doors. And then over here that out of view is another huge freezer. I'm going to turn my laser pointer off. I didn't realize that was on. Um, and both the refrigerator and the freezer are inside that reinforced concrete enclosure. It has concrete walls, concrete ceiling, concrete floors, the whole thing. And there's room for many thousands of brains. We can also store in liquid nitrogen. This is our dewar. Although that does not improve quality. So the patients that are in this dewar, most of them were placed here before we switched away from cryonics, from traditional cryonics. Let me turn my pointer back on again. This is our mini bulk tank. I was going to switch out for a larger bulk tank as we increase the number of dewars, but we're not going to be doing that anymore. And so this one is adequate, and it gets filled from outside by a truck that comes by. And then from there, we fill the one that has the patients in it. And there's room for lots and lots, I would say hundreds in here. And since we try to convince people not to go this route, it should last a long time. So let's talk a little bit about how chemical fixation works at the molecular level. Formaldehyde, formalin, and aldehyde are all three words that could pretty much be used interchangeably. That chemical, formaldehyde, formalin, or aldehyde, this all the same chemical really, is used to lock molecules in place. And that's what the fixation and fixative mean, is it causes cross links that fix the molecules in place. Crosslinks are molecular bonds between two molecules. What you're looking at here is an animation that I'm going to turn on. It's a video. And each of these red and yellow and orange things, and I guess the blue one, green ones too, those are proteins. You're in the inside of a cell looking up at the underside of the cell membrane. So these little things up here are all the phospholipids. It's kind of a cartoony, but it's not too far off. So I'm going to turn on the video and then I'll let it run through a few times and I'll try to explain what this is. There we go. Okay, so everything's moving around. That's some Brownian motion, but it's moving around a lot more than this. And of course it decided to stop. Don't know why. I'll play it again. Okay. The lipids, let's see, get my laser pointer. These lipids in the cell membrane are spinning like a top at the rate of 1 billion times per second. These proteins are actually rotating at the lazy speed of 1 million times a second. So inside your body, these things are screaming along at a very fast pace. And the faster they move, the more they move around, the faster damage can happen. We need to stop them from moving. And so when we look at this video, what we're really looking at is a slow motion version of reality that's also simplified somewhat. I don't see the phospholipids actually spinning at all here. All right, so I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to explain what fixation does exactly. And so I have my pin, I can't make the thickness any bigger, so hopefully you can see it. So right here, I'm adding a molecule of formaldehyde. It's a small molecule, and I think it has a, oh, I better not say how many atoms. It has a carbon, it has a couple of hydrogens, and not much more than that. I think that might be about it. But there's not much to it, and so it can connect two molecules. If you put some formalin in here, it will form a bond where two molecules happen to be touching. Now, it has to be the right kind of amino acids at those two locations, and so it doesn't happen very often. You end up with roughly one bond per protein, but that can be enough. One here, another one over here. You get a little sprinkling of these things, but that immediately stops all that spinning that I was talking about. It keeps it from drifting out of the field of view here. It really locks it down. It starts to turn it into a gel, and it prevents degradation. It's extremely important to stop all that motion and try to just keep the molecules where they are. If you can keep the molecules where they are, you know the structure of the brain. And since most of the proteins will get, one or two, maybe a big one would get three links on average. Uh, it it does a good job of keeping them in place. Um, let's see here. So the web of crosslinks is mostly just between proteins and DNA. And like I said, this is a simplified version of the cell. In a real cell, all this open space here is actually filled with other things. And so you don't get to really see, it's not transparent like this. Um, and so once the proteins get locked together, the other molecules, like these phospholipids in the membrane, uh, they just hang around because they're kind of trapped with the protein. The fixation doesn't really attach to those. It doesn't attach to fats or sugars, but those stay in place because they're trapped in this web of proteins. The entire membrane of the cell is laced with proteins, and so it'll stay put. That stabilizes it. And this is why scientists use it. They've been using it for 100 years, and it's the very best technique possible. Does it do a perfect preservation? No, it does not, but it's the very best that we have available. There's just nothing better than this. This is a 3D model that I built that shows a, another view of how this would work. So here's a DNA over at the right, and there's the DNA, and it's there. I'm showing four proteins. I'm showing four aldehyde bonds, and this is roughly about the number that you would end up with. Now, notice that none of this is damaged. These aldehyde bonds did not damage anything. They didn't they didn't cause a loss of information. They just kept things where they were. It's real easy to see because I made them red, but it, it's pretty straightforward that these are just locking molecules in place and they're not causing damage. And it just immobilizes things. And once we have the technology to remove the aldehydes, then the cell would once again be fully functional. Yes, I'm glossing over a few things. There would be some proteins that would be denatured that would have to be refolded. I've considered those pretty minor details. The um, the technology that would be required to do this is the exact same technology that you would need to revive somebody from cryopreservation. There, if you have the technology for one, you have the technology for the other. So it's not really about revival here. It's more about which has a better preservation. And some people complain that aldehyde fixation would prevent biological revival, but that's just not true. Um, both aldehyde fixation and traditional cryonics require could be repaired to a biological revival and to the exact same degree. So let's talk a little bit about revival. This is what seems to get everybody excited. So I'll just get into revival here. There are two general revival scenarios. You got biological and uploading. Now I've highlighted biological revival because that's what everybody wants. I personally feel that uploading will be far easier and will clearly be how everybody gets revived, but they're both possible. Uh, Physics says that either one could equally happen. The reason I'm excited about uploading is because I think it's going to happen sooner, and I'm I'm just more of a nerd, I guess. I just like it, but it's scary to a lot of people. So I think it's important to point out that the revival options, which one of these two you choose, is completely independent of the preservation options. So whether you choose if you choose cryonics, you could be revived biologically, or you could be revived by uploading. If you choose chemical fixation, you could be revived biological or by uploading. They're independent from each other. And all the experts in the cryonics community agree with that. Nobody's ever disputed that. Everybody agrees that the the protocol used for preservation is independent from the um, the the revival that you choose. And yes, you will get a choice. That's, of course, going to be part of it. But I would point out that on the left, the fixation is higher quality. So that gives you a better chance at biological revival. And this is not just my opinion that fixation is better quality. Mainstream science just says so. It's flat out, it's a fact. And so going with cryonics does not improve the chances of a biological revival. This is one of my favorite pictures of a cell. We're zooming out now, and we're looking at part of a cell. And around the outside here would be the membrane of the cell. I don't know what kind of cell this is. The white lines that you see here are microtubules. And in cartoon versions of cells, they're generally shown radiating from the middle of the cell outwards. But somebody's microphone is on. I'm hearing thumping. All right. Um, in a cartoon version of a cell that diagram, you would see the microtubules kind of radiating out towards the perimeter of the cell. And these are the highways that the proteins move out and away from the nucleus and back towards the nucleus. They're very important. And in real life, they are a bit more chaotic, like this. They're fantastic. Um, the orange filaments that you see here are actin, and then I don't think this particular graphic is showing intermediate filaments. So you've got three different kinds of filaments, and this is showing two of them. But that's the cytoskeleton of the cell. That's what gives a cell structure, and there's all protein. And if you preserve those microtubules and those actin filaments and you lock them in place, you know exactly what shape that cell is. Now, a living cell, if you push on it on one of these sides, it'll bounce back like a sponge. The 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 cytoskeleton is what gives it its shape, but it's pliable. And there you can't quite tell, but there's also proteins. There's a lattice of proteins embedded in the membrane itself that are connected to these microtubules and to these actin filaments. And so you have a lot of protein in your cell that defines the shape of the cell. And if you preserve those proteins, you've preserved the shape of the cell. And if there's a tear in the membrane, you know where the membrane is supposed to be because of all the proteins, and you can come back and repair it. The membrane is a little bit fragile, but the protein strengthens it and gives it its shape and allows you to know where it's supposed to be. So you could infer where the membrane should be, and then you can repair the membrane. Zooming out a little bit more, and there are better images, but this is connectome. This is showing different neurons. Each one's a different color, and how they all interlace. And there's a lot of empty space that wouldn't normally exist. But this can help give you an idea. Um, Neurons have these long, delicate axons and dendrites. And it's common for a single neuron to span the entire brain. It goes all the way from one side to the other. And so it's really important when you're reconstructing a brain to preserve that continuity. You have to know which process matches up as you uh, go through the tissue. And imagine if you had a bundle of these axons and then they got damaged and cut, and then you had to try to match them back up again. It can be very difficult. And there is a solution to that. Uh, there's different names for it. One common name is barcoding. You basically look at all the molecules in each cell, and they have a unique pattern. Like this cell uh, has slightly different combinations of molecules, and by using those, you can actually match up those mismatched neurons again to trace that connection all the way through the brain. And so that's what connectomics scientists are currently spending a lot of their time doing, is trying to improve the accuracy of tracing neurons. Um, as this, let's see, there are many teams of scientists around the world trying to trace connectomes. And they recently revived, or not revived, they got the entire connectome for a fruit fly and uploaded it. And there's all kinds of fun things. If you stimulate its taste buds, it activates the muscle that sticks out its tongue. It's very cool. It was brain damaged, of course. It was blind in one eye. They're working on a mouse. I think it'll take about 10 years to do it with a mouse. And of course, they're very crude connectomes. By the time you trace one of these neurons from one side of the brain to the other, you've almost certainly lost track of it. It's just so hard to trace it, and we don't have the technology yet, but we're getting better at it. And so these are low tech compared to what we will eventually need, but it is kind of interesting that they're already working on this problem. These four images are from that recent cryopreservation paper, and they show the space. Each of the space in each of these four slides is at kind of a different zoom level, and uh, the space represents ice. So the white areas here are ice. The big open areas in here were ice that's been removed. And so what you're looking at, the dark areas, is the brain tissue that remains after the ice is removed. And you can see the ice has caused a lot of damage. Now, the damage that you see here would never happen in one of our cases because we don't allow ice at all. We have zero ice damage in any of our cases. So this is only damage that you'll see in traditional cryonics. Ice compresses at a force of 75,000 psi. So it's perfectly capable of smushing everything in between. And so that's kind of what you're seeing here. Um, it's been compressed a lot, and it's not just a simple compression, it's a shearing force. So it presses and it shears, which can stir the molecules and make it really impossible to, I think, impossible to infer where the original structure was and what it used to look like. And you might think this isn't very common, but they've done CT scans on all the cryonics cases, and every single one of them has inadequate perfusion to different degrees. And inadequate perfusion translates to ice damage. So whether there was a little bit or whether there was a lot, um, this this is pretty typical. And because of logistics issues, some cryonics cases are straight frozen without any cryo protection, and that would be this situation throughout the entire brain. When we talk about revival, everybody wants to know about growing a new body. Well, that's actually the very easiest part of all of this. Uh, from any cell, you can grow an entire new body. Your cell knows how to do it. It differentiates. Um, you just provide it some scaffolding, some directions, some external chemical stimuli, and you can grow a new arm. You can grow a new leg. You can grow all the organs. You can grow a skull around the brain. You can grow a new body around a brain. So that's the easy part. This will have been common for decades before we ever get anywhere close to reviving somebody, because repairing the brain is far harder. Growing a new body is not repairing molecules. It's not even repairing cells. It's taking existing cells and just guiding them to do what they already know how to do. And so you don't need technology that operates on molecules. You just need technology that operates at the cellular level. We're not there yet. It's going to take us a while to be able to get good at turning stem cells into an entire body. And that's actually the end of the presentation.
Jordan, that's amazing stuff. I have some questions for you from some of our members here. Let me start with the first one. So the first question comes from Jose. Is there any chance of reanimation later on with chemical fixation? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yes, this red line right here shows that with chemical fixation, you can get biological revival. That's the best path. The best path is to get good preservation. Well, not for me. I want the uploading, but for most people, it's going to be uh, biological revival is what they're going to be interested in, and so that is the preferred path for most people right now.
Possible to do both, to be both uploaded as well as a biological revival. It seems to me that those don't have to be conflicting.
Yes, people who want biological revival don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about copies. I would love to talk about it all day long, but I don't want to scare people. Um, but I would say that if you're going to get a biological revival, I think it's pretty obvious that the scanning process of the original tissue is going to require pretty detailed scan, and they're going to have to get that scan loaded up into software and look at the repairs. You're going to have software that decides where the repairs need to be made. And if you've got an entire brain with all the molecules loaded up into software, it would be trivial to just turn it on. So, yeah.
Another question from Jose. How about brain reading and uploading in a different substrate in the future? What are your thoughts there?
Well, if you do the upload, that means different substrate. So, uh, biological means uh, a brain substrate, the one that we're used to. Uploading would require a different substrate. We're not talking about using cells anymore if we're doing uploading. We don't know what the substrate would look like. The simple word for it nowadays would be a computer, but of course it would be much more than that. Uh, but we get a glimmer of what it might sort of look like if you sort of imagine computers combined with robots. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's not that's a very crude way of describing it. Um, so yes, other substrates is possible. Copies are possible. Um, Anybody who watches science fiction doesn't have a problem with all of that. Like when Kirk transports down to a planet, his body just got dissolved and rebuilt on the other end with different molecules, and nobody cares. And that's kind of how the future will look at it. If it works, if it results in a person and you feel like yourself and it's a practical solution, once it's possible, once any of these things are possible, nobody's people are going to want it just naturally. And they're not going to, people are going to be more practical about it, and they'll want to be alive.
Okay. Here's a question from Carrie. Is formaldehyde considered a small molecule that can cross the brain-blood barrier?
Yes, it's extremely tiny, and trying to remember, I can't claim with 100% certainty that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, but I can maybe 95% certain. Yeah.
A comment saying that that's correct. Um, okay. Okay. I have a question from Rudy. Rudy, do you want to ask it? Do you want to come on?
Open the blood-brain barrier as Nectum does it. I believe the sparks. Am I correct to say, Jordan, that in blood barrier openers when introducing chemicals through perfusion?
Yes, so we have these. I think I forgot that in the first slide. I got all. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Andrew McKenzie is our scientist, MD, PhD, and he's a prolific publisher, and he's looked into that. And at the moment, we do not, mostly because the brains are already damaged to the degree that they already the blood-brain barrier is never really very much intact anyway. I mean, I suppose if you had a healthy young person and you were able to do it within a few minutes, you might need to do that, but not for the cases we're getting.
Okay. Let's see. We have another question here from the crowd. So, do we have any examples of cross-linked aldehyde cells that have been revivable and documented to work?
So what we do have is mainstream science is very interested in looking at tissue and seeing what molecules are there. So it's very common for them to take tissue that's been fixed with formaldehyde and put markers on it, monoclonal antibodies with fluorescence, and they can see what molecules are in the tissue. That's very common, and so in that sense, they are able to. We already know that we can look at the molecules, and that's what matters. Um, we don't have a way to keep a cell alive. If we did, that would be great. Cryonics doesn't do it, and fixation doesn't do it. In cryonics, the cell is dead hours and hours and hours before it goes sub-zero. It's completely dead. So we're talking about preserving structure here in both cases. We're only talking about how well can we ensure that those molecules are in the right places so that future technology can infer what the correct function used to be. And so it's all about structural preservation. It has really nothing at all to do with our lower technology trying to revive anything at all. It's just not going to happen. Our technology is not good enough for cryonics or fixation.
Okay.
Oh, I
Another
see
question.
Andrew is on here. I didn't know you were here. Andrew McKenzie, hello. He
Yes,
could
we have
answer that question a whole lot better than me.
I think you did well. We have another question here. The question is, how can someone do a chemical fixation plus a cryonic preservation? So the assumption is that you have to do one or the other. You'd have to choose.
So, so Andrew been uh, has mentioned that we could just brand ourselves as a new form of cryopreservation. We do the cooling afterwards. We do the cooling to -20 Celsius. So that's freezer temperature. That's like a freezer at your home. Um, that's the temperature that we would like to store at. Um, so it could be considered a form of cryonics. Um, and we also do offer, after fixation, we do offer liquid nitrogen storage. So that is a feature that we offer. We offer that, but it we really don't feel like it improves the quality, right? Um, I think it just makes some people feel better. It's more traditional or maybe what they're used to, but it really isn't improving things.
Okay. Um, okay. Well, we have another question here. What trusts, if any, are in place to ensure perpetual storage for your patients? Do you envision any other locations in the future that could become primary storage locations?
I'm a little bit skeptical that this will take off like wildfire, right?
Mhm.
So there's really one building is enough at the moment. Now, if it becomes very popular, then yes, we would obviously see storage in multiple cities. Um, the the cost for keeping one of our brains in storage is almost zero. Um, you know, it's a brain in liquid, even in the freezer, it's still liquid, um, on a shelf, and it's just really not expensive to do the perpetual storage. Because the expense is so much lower for storage, you know, all of the costs that we charge, I forget exactly what we charge. It's somewhere under 50,000, I think, at the moment. That's all for the rapid response. It's not for storage. The storage is so inexpensive that even if everything goes wrong, the patients are safe. There's just not you know, the reason that cryonics has to do the trusts is because there's so much money involved. You have to have, you know, before you could possibly put somebody in liquid nitrogen, um, you have to make sure that they're properly funded. We do the same thing. We won't put somebody in liquid nitrogen here until they're funded because of that. But we will take a case and we will do the chemical preservation because even if they don't come through with the money, there's very little risk. And so the risk goes way down. The risk goes down for the organization, the risk goes down for the patients. And you know, you can keep a cryonics organization going for a very long time. Um, in San Francisco, there's a doer that's been there for decades with one or two people in it, and it's still going. That somebody comes in every week and adds some liquid nitrogen. Um, and and so, you know, we could do that for the liquid nitrogen. You know, if of course we think about all these contingencies, you know, what if something happens? What if something goes wrong? And so, you know, we do have a backup board of directors. You know, if something happens to me, we have a plan for how the organization survives. And if that means the organization ends up with less money, then it gradually uh, contracts in an organized manner. It's not something that would just suddenly, you know, like a cryo roost or something. We're doing it in a responsible manner.
Okay, good. Um, Question from Carrie. How many fully funded members do you have currently?
I'd have to look it up. I think my earlier slide said, well, okay, so fully funded. So that's a different, we don't really use that term. That's a cryonics term.
Okay.
There, um, you know, we would like people to pay for their service, so we have a fee that we charge. We provide scholarships or reduced fees for people who can't afford it. But at the end of the day, if we end up with a brain that's underfunded or completely unfunded, we're going to take care of it. And so there isn't really the term fully funded is kind of a loaded question. It kind of comes from the cryonics side of things. That's not really a concern. Yeah, of course.
All right, Carrie.
Yes.
You have a yearly member. Maybe that's good enough.
Yeah.
The yearly fee of I don't know how much it was, 200 a year?
150.
150 per year. That's very reasonable.
And the 150 applies towards future services.
I think that's very reasonable. It's just that, you have the standby fee of, I don't know how much it was, 50K or something, which
It's a little
I think
under
fair.
that. I'm
I
trying
think
to.
that's fair, fair. So, if you start to get a lot more patients, you want to make it financially sustainable, right? It's probably fine right now.
All right. So our website says we have 70 plus members. Most of those are paying the $150 a year.
That's a good amount.
And we're just getting started. I mean, we've only been at it for about 6 months with that particular. We've been like for 20 years we were kind of in stealth mode, and now we've made the switch, and now we're doing the fully public, growth, advertising, marketing sort of mode. And I think our additional locations that we're building will help tremendously with that.
Okay. Another question also from Carrie was, do you use a CT scan to figure out the concentration or effectiveness of your perfusions of formaldehyde?
We can add contrast to the perfusion to see it on the CT scan, which we do sometimes when the scanner's not broken. But it's really, if you think about it, you do the best you can. You pump the fluids into the arteries, and either it's going to go or it's not. If it's not going to get into that part of the brain, I mean, after 15 minutes of pumping, what would you do next? Well, you would just do what we would do anyway. You remove the brain and you immerse it in formalin. So yes, we could look at it, but it doesn't really tell us anything clinical. It doesn't affect what we would do clinically. Now, if we were doing cryopreservation, it absolutely has a clinical effect, because you have to know what the perfusion quality is before you go sub-zero. But we're not doing that, and so really, it's not really a very useful clinical tool for what we're doing.
And your perfusion doesn't reach all parts of the brain, I'm assuming, if there had been some kind of delay. So when you immerse the brain in formaldehyde, does it just go through all parts of the brain, or are there parts that it wouldn't be able to diffuse into? Is it just a physics thing where it has to diffuse into every part of the brain?
I read this paper 10 years ago. I love it. It describes this scientist who was out on whaling boats, and the whalers would capture, end up with these whales. I think they were trapped in their fishing gear or something. Anyway, she would end up with the whale, and she would cut a triangle in the skull and pour formaldehyde into it. And this wasn't immediate. The whale had been laying there for a little while, and whale brains are very large. And then she looked at it under a light microscope later, and it looked like the formaldehyde had made it all the way through the entire brain. Now, that's not that's not a very strong paper. You know, there was no ultrastructure, I don't believe, that was looked at. But I would defer to Andy if he would like to answer that question. Would that be possible?
And sure, Andy, would you like to speak to that?
Can you clarify the question again?
Cryonicists use a CT scan to see where the cryoprotectant made it throughout the brain. With formaldehyde, how do you scan? Is there a way of scanning it to make sure it goes through all the brain, or does it actually just as a chemical process, just has so much more penetrative ability through diffusion to penetrate every part of the brain?
Yeah, I mean,
Have
it
some
is
idea.
eventually if you immerse a brain in formalin.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but
you can't do the immersion with cryoprotectant for a variety of reasons, including it penetrates slower, and you need to do a gradation to avoid osmotic damage. So it's just not possible.
Okay, but it's better to perfuse the formaldehyde because it's faster than the diffusion process, right? Because then there's more ischemic damage.
For sure, and we
Okay.
always attempt, unless it's been really long, we would always attempt perfusion, but it's still just not going to work in many cases. Perfusion, unfortunately, it's a very difficult problem. Postmortem perfusion or ischemic perfusion.
Okay. Okay, let's see. We have another question. Carrie, I think it was yours as well. Oh, here's a different question. So Jordan, is glutaraldehyde preferred over formaldehyde in any way?
I'm a big fan of glutaraldehyde. I've been pushing for it since the beginning. Formalin penetrates faster. And if you use glutaraldehyde initially, there's a concern that it will prevent the formaldehyde from penetrating properly. So it's good to start with formaldehyde, and then if we're interested in doing glutaraldehyde, it's something we would add later. But as far as I know, our current protocol is to transition and add glutaraldehyde later. Yes.
Okay.
In a medical aid in dying case where we had really high knowledge that we get a good perfusion, we had a higher probability chance of that, then we would add glutaraldehyde to the formaldehyde in the perfusion.
Okay, here's another question, Carrie. I'll ask for you. Jordan, why do you use the carotids vertebrals to perfuse rather than to use median sternotomy through the heart?
We've done both, obviously, lots and lots of cases of each. And over time, the complexity of the surgeries, we like the carotid approach better. It's faster, it's simpler, it's less that can go wrong. It's just more reliable. Now, the advantage to doing through the aorta is that you pick up the vertebrals with just the one cannula. You get all four arteries, but you also get a lot of other arteries that you don't need. You need a lot more volume. There's a lot that can go wrong. The cannula can slip out easier. There's it's complicated, and there's lots of technical details. But you know, if you look at somebody's carotid arteries, a lot of them have calcifications in them, for example. You know, if you get up in the internal carotid artery, you're past all that, and so you're gonna not have to deal with that, for example. I mean, that's just one example of many.
Thank you. Rudy's asking you, do you offer full body preservations of any sort?
Yes, we've decided to start doing full body. Now, what it means is we would do the brain, our standard protocol, the very best possible preservation that we could. And then separately, we preserve the body. And there's lots of different ways we could do that. We've talked about different ways of doing it. At the moment, our protocol would involve chemical fixation of the body as much as possible. And then some dehydration to help it preserve better, and then sealing it. And so we're probably talking about room temperature, maybe refrigerator temperature. We can't go freezer temperature with the bodies because we can't get we can't prevent ice crystals. There's not a good way to get the cryoprotectant into all the areas of the body. So the brain would end up in freezer temperature with the very best quality, and the body, including things like the spinal cord, would end up with as good of preservation as we could get, but it's going to be a little different than the brain.
I see. Is the $50,000 cost fundable by life insurance or properly structured annuities?
Absolutely. We will give people guidance on how to do that, but we're not going to rigorously check that beforehand like you would in cryonics. And so we would anticipate maybe getting paid from the life insurance, a month or two down the road. Rudy would be better at answering the timing on that, but it's not something that we can necessarily count on. And so, here in the United States, we bill the next of kin basically, and so they're responsible for payment, and we try not to make it such a huge amount that that it's too much of a burden, and we hope that the person was organized and set aside some money, or they so that they don't cause problems for their relatives that they leave behind. So,
Jordan, if someone is near death and they were to come to your facility so that they don't have the team coming to them, would that bring that cost down for the preservation?
no, it would not.
Okay.
We have a nice big facility here that was expensive to build, and the fair thing to do would be to pay your portion into that. Now, if you really can't afford it, we'll try to work with you. But the price we charge is the same no matter what the situation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any experiments towards personal memory recovery being planned by the Sparks organization?
Well, there are lots of scientists in mainstream who are very interested in doing exactly that. It's not really our focus, although as we get more scientists, we might decide to make it part of our focus. Our focus is on good preservation. That's really what we're just laser focused on, and that's a lot of work already. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, but still, we kind of need to maintain focus on that, I think.
Okay. A question came that you may avoid asking if you don't answering if you don't want to, but the question is about the full physical plant. Is it owned without mortgages, or what's your?
Well, that was the original plan. I was going to have this one building with no mortgage, but then I got the bright idea that, well, let's build some more around the United States. So that's kind of out the window.
Okay. Do you think that the KPI of structural preservation should include evidence-based memory recovery from patients?
I'm sorry, the KPI?
Yeah, let's see who's asking that question. Whoever's asking the KPI question, do you want to?
It means key performance indicator.
Okay.
So I've been trying to get the chat up. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Could you read it to me again?
Do you think that the key performance indicator of structural preservation should include evidence-based memory recovery from patients? Okay.
Alexei Boropov.
Go ahead, Alexei.
If you keep the patient, so the efficiency of brain preservation should it include include at least the experiments of memory recovery, because you have more possibility to, unlike the cryonics patient, when the patient is needed to be kind of on a lower temperature, and access is very limited because of this temperature. Like, do you plan to kind of experiments to restore memories? This is
Ah,
why you keep the patients in the first place, the memories, right?
okay. We have a lot of brains here that are not patients. That means that we can, as the technology gets better and we start getting closer, we can experiment on all of those brains, and we could start trying to look at the uh, the quality without having to damage an existing patient. So I don't think we would touch the patient brains. I think our process would be to do it in a more of an experimental manner on non-patients.
Okay. Thank you. Here's a question from Rudy. Is there any state in the US where you can get MAID made with cognitive issues like Alzheimer's or senile dementia?
I'm not aware that Alzheimer's would, depending on the severity, um, that it would, it's not listed as an exclusionary condition. Um, Andy, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, really complicated question. I think it's probably too in the weeds.
Okay. Okay. Let me see.
I know that if I start to get Alzheimer's, I'm going to make sure that I get it done. And
Some routes like voluntary stopping of eating and drinking. And there's one paper that if you do voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, then that becomes a terminal illness, which then would qualify somebody for MAID. But that, may only be possible with certain physicians. And we don't do that ourselves. So that's just basically everyone else needs to, we can't be involved in that process because that would be, a separation we don't want to cross.
Okay. I think the answer to this is yes. Is Sparks Brain Preservation the first on the market offering chemical fixation?
yes, as far as I know, and I've heard there's a company in Germany that's trying to do it. Also, Tomorrow Biostasis says they're not opposed to it, which is why they chose their name instead of Tomorrow Cryonics. Nectome has been talking about it for a long time, but they don't currently offer it. So I think we're first, and I think we're pretty much the only ones, unless you include a few little edge cases. I mean, we're the only ones that make it our the primary method.
Okay. Another question. Have any of your patients or members chosen to move to a hospice or assisted living facility within close proximity to your location to ensure a timely preservation?
A few, very rarely. Most people think that they'll be able to do that, but then when the time comes, they're too tired, they're too confused, it's too much money. Life just gets in the way, and most people aren't able to do that. So it's not very practical, but every now and then somebody's able to do it, and it's uh, it's hard to get on a plane, for example. So how do you get there? So it's
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah. Here's a question from Jose. So he's asking, how do you differentiate your approach to that of nectomy? Are you currently familiar with Nectome's approach?
Yeah, our approach is the same.
Mhm.
We don't differentiate it. They differentiate it a little bit by saying they won't take any case unless it's a medical aid in dying, so they're just restrictive, but we do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
We have a nice facility. They're working on it. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like
Okay.
pretty much the same thing to me.
Thank you. I may have missed some questions in the chat box. If there's anyone that I missed your question, I'd like to welcome you to jump in and chime in with your question. If I missed anybody, and let me go over to the YouTube live stream while we're doing this as well, because there may be some questions in here. Do you have a department, anything in Europe on YouTube live stream?
Was that a question for me?
Yes, Jordan, do you have any activity in Europe? Is there any?
Oh,
If someone is in Europe, how can they access your services?
right. So, for someone in other countries like Europe, there's the main approach tends to be get an embalming locally. We work with a funeral director. They do an embalming. The embalming fluid is full of formaldehyde. It's not the scientific tested chemicals that we use, but it certainly is better than nothing. You know if somebody's in another country, there can be companies like Tomorrow Biostasis who might have some expertise and be able to do it. But the big problem, right? And there is the company in Germany, so you could contact them. So there are some options. But if you're going to get it done with us, and you're in another country, a very practical approach to that is to get an embalming and hurry up and get the body to us so we can finish the job. And we've done that before.
Okay. Okay, great. If I missed anybody's questions, this is your last chance to chime in. One question here is being asked, how many patients do you have? I think we covered that already. Let's see. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
I guess I haven't heard this advertised very much. I'm kind of shocked. I kind of feel like I just learn what I don't learn. I guess what's that Socrates statement? The more you learn in life, the more you learn that you don't know. Or I've been
Unless you know.
Yeah, been keeping up with cryonics for 25 years, and I'm just now feel like almost feel embarrassed that I haven't heard of the chemical fixation process. Is this so? You say you haven't? I think I read through the chat that they don't actively market it. What would be the reason for that? I've been keeping my ear to the ground on this stuff, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard of this before.
Sure. I've been involved for 30 years. And so when I started, there were people in the industry who knew better than me, and I deferred to them. They were wiser than me, and I went along with what they said. I started pushing back on this about 10, 15 years ago, and it just takes time. You have to build your case. You had to get some science in place. There's some scientific papers released. And you gradually change minds. You talk to people. Some conversations that I've had over the years have made a really big impact. So in little bits and spurts, then you find somebody else who agrees with you, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe it is a good idea. And so it's just one of those things that organically grows. And I've been vocal about it for a few years, not terribly long, but like I said, I was mostly doing this for myself. This didn't start out to be a big service I was going to provide to everybody. And if everybody else comes along for the ride, that's fine. But I mostly just wanted good preservation for myself. Well, you start to realize as you get a little older that that means being surrounded by a whole bunch of other people with the same goal. And so you can't just do it alone.
links in the presentation. Is there anywhere else we could go to educate ourselves on this? Is there like publications or like a popular a book in the popular sciences that
Now
cover this topic?
on our website, there's a link to a forum at the top. I have a lot of stuff to say in the forum that I've got a lot of stuff in there that would keep you busy for a while. We will be at these future events, like we'll be down in Berkeley for the Vitalist Bay. We're doing our own summit this coming fall. So you'll be seeing a lot more of us. And I think our ideas resonate with a lot of young people, especially who are a lot more open to the idea of, a process that doesn't try so hard to preserve the viability of the cell, which is a hopeless endeavor anyway. And it's a cultural thing, there's not very many of us trying to preserve brains anyway, cryonics or aldehyde. So when we get our new locations built and we get the signs on the building, we're going to get a lot of publicity. We're going to be in the news a lot. That's just what happens. The reporters just eat this stuff up, and so you'll hear about it a lot. Yeah.
Sparksbrain.org. Any
Sparks Brain Preservation. Just Google Sparks Brain Preservation.
Yeah, it's sparksbrain.org. Yep.
Okay.
any particular part of the website, or is it hard to get to, or what'd you say?
No, it's at the top right. There's a link to the forum, FORUM.
Forum, okay.
That's one way to do it. There's also plenty of pages on our website that you could just kind of browse around and click through a bunch of stuff, and you'll find all kinds of good stuff.
That's great,
Okay.
Jordan.
Thank
There's
you.
a question in the YouTube live stream asking whether you have any plans in the future to have any facility in the European area.
No, I'm not going to live long enough. Sorry.
Well, let's see to it that you do live long enough, Jordan. You're getting lots of kudos here in the comments. I want to thank you for all that you have done here and all that you are doing. We appreciate your great work and the contribution you're making to the biostasis community. Very, very good presentation tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to have a short after party, and you're invited to stand by and chat with a few people afterwards. This has been a good night. I'd like to just close out here tonight. In the event that you had any trouble, or if you want to see this again, this has been recorded. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. Go to the top of our website and you'll find the YouTube links to our channels. Please share this recording in the event with everybody that you care about. And join us here next month at the end of May, the last Thursday in May. We'll be in person and online. We'll see you again. That's going to be May 28th, Thursday, both in person and online. Thank you, and we'll see you then.